Good evening, everybody. This is a work session of the Greenbelt City Council. My name is Emmett Jordan. I serve as Mayor, Council.
Kristen Weaver, Mayor Pro Tem.
Sylvia Pope, Council.
Daniel McKinney, Council Member.
Jenny Pompey, Council Member.
Rodney Roberts, City Council.
Okay, any information items for the end of the meeting? Well, hearing none, let me just share the statement. We hold council work sessions on Mondays, Wednesdays, several times a month to exchange information with community stakeholder groups or to gather information from staff, advisory boards, or residents. No formal votes or formal actions are taken at work sessions. Our work sessions, as well as our meetings, are open to the public, except for executive sessions as authorized by state law, so that residents and others can observe council's deliberations. We do strive to provide reasonable opportunities for the public to voice opinions on matters being considered, and we'll pause periodically for public comment, probably every 20 minutes or so. During this time, if you are here in the room and you wish to make a comment, raise your hand. After being recognized, you can go to the microphone podium there. You need to provide your name and address. We need this for the minutes. If you are on Zoom, you can use the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen to submit a written question, or if you raise your virtual hand, we'll recognize you and promote you so that you can speak. And if you are watching on cable TV, on Facebook streaming or YouTube, you can send us an email. The email address is questions@greenbeltmd.gov. So for the public comment, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Speak on one topic related to the question under consideration. We ask that you avoid questioning the motives of others, and in general, let's be civil in our remarks. So tonight we've got a double-decker work session, and so we'll be covering two topics. First, we'll be talking about the Greenbelt Armory and a preliminary feasibility study assessment. And the second half of the work session, which will start probably about 45 minutes, we'll be discussing the city's ethics ordinance and talking about some recommendations from the Ethics Commission. So let me start off by saying hello to our city manager, Josue Samaron.
Hi, good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council.
Good evening. Let's see. The Greenbelt Armory, it's located at the corner of Southway and Greenbelt Road. It has a rich history that reflects the evolving needs of the community and the changing landscape of municipal property ownership. The Armory was originally owned by the state of Maryland in conjunction with the National Guard. In 2016, the state ceased using the property for National Guard purposes. And following this, because there's something called a reverter clause, the city of Greenbelt, September 16th, we were able to officially acquire the Armory from the United States government through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So it's been a short while, even though we've been working on getting a hold of this Armory, which is a part of our history for quite some time, for several years. I don't know, about 5 years, 5 or 6 years, a long time. So a first step for us was actually to get an assessment. So we've got a preliminary report out on the initial assessment. And the contractor, Taylor, here, you're from UMAR?
Yes, my name is Talora Imes Thomas, and I am representing Amar Group LLC. And we are the team lead for the feasibility study. And first, I just want to say thank you, Mr. Mayor, to you and the board for allowing us to be here today, and also to Josue and to Tim for allowing us to be a part of this wonderful process. So we met with you, I guess it's been about a month or so, maybe a little more than that. And since that time, our team has had a kickoff meeting, and we started our site observation. Site observation actually started December 8th. We had our kickoff in November. And with the assistance of Mr. Desmond and Mr. Mike, of course, they were a big help to us. We were able to get through all of our visual observation between the 8th and the 19th. Part of the work included our mobilization, interior and exterior visual observation and survey, the openings inspections. We also started the structural analysis, the water leakage testing, which was a little trying as well because we did not have water supplied to us to be able to reproduce a rain event on the exterior of the facility. So we may do. Mr. Desmond did the best that he could to provide us with some water. So we were able to actually test the downspouts and roof drains and test some of the building facade to see if there was water infiltration. As well, we started the hazardous testing, both inside the building and on the exterior. So we do have some preliminary results from the building. ECS did provide some bores that were sent out for testing. Those have not come back yet, so we don't have any of the site related testing results today. The other things that we started was the phase 1 environmental study. And we did get a preliminary GIS site plan that was provided by AMT. The team combined after our visual inspection, we provided the photo and narrative documentation. And we did send a preliminary document, but it's not something that we want to share with anyone at this time. So just with Tim and Josue at this point.
Before we get too far into this, just to provide a little more context, I guess Council, we authorized this preliminary study, assessment study, about a month ago. Time just flies. Maybe the end of October.
A little bit over a month, correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so the scope of the study, just in terms of the timeline and the deliverables, how is the project being phased? The assessment.
So, we have it broken out into different steps based on what was in the original RFP. Task 1 included the visual observation. So 1A was visual observation of the building. 1B was visual observation of the site and discovering what the deficiencies were for both. And then the next step was task 2A, which was taking the deficiencies from task 1A and applying recommendations. So, and then 2B would basically be the same thing, but for the site. And then task 3 would be the community outreach piece and also coming up with the concept options for you. So where we are right now is what you want to know. We have completed part 1A, and that we will have completed by this week. And we'll be submitting just the deficiencies as a package. Starting on the 5th, which is tomorrow, we will be going into the recommendations. The recommendations will last through February 23rd. And that's both for building and site recommendations. It's going to go through the 23rd, and then also site is going to go through February 6th.
You're sharing? Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then February 6th through April 10th will be commencement of the community outreach concepts.
February 10th. Okay. Mr. Roberts?
Thank you. I was wondering if you have, or if you are going to try to find the original blueprints for the building. So you can see what kind of foundation it has, the amount of concrete, all that kind of stuff. Because I know they have, they store munitions in there, so I assume it's fairly robust in its construction. But I thought if you had the blueprints that we could tell that.
We don't have the original blueprints. What we have is what was in the original RFP. And then layered into that as part of our initial survey was to scan the building. But of course, that's only limited to what we can see and what we can pick up with the scan device.
Now, is there like, would they have that at the Library of Congress or something like that? I assume
Have
they're,
started, yes,
I
we've
assume they
started doing
must
a
be
research.
somewhere, right?
We've started doing research to try to find the existing buildings and building plans for it. I have not found those yet.
And so we've also reached out through our attorney to HUD and to Maryland to see if they have any records that they can share with us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So right now, up on the screen, you have the first items that we looked at and observed, and these are from Task 1A. And so this is just a brief of our initial findings.
My, that doesn't look so good.
Yeah, are you able to see it? It does seem kind of small even from there. Yes. And so going from 1 through 6, item 1 is showing the visible cracks on the building facade. This picture is actually taken from one of the garage structures. And what's really important about it is not just the step cracking that you see, but more importantly, there are cracks that actually go through the brick, which really indicates something a bit more structural that we need to investigate further. That is indicative of potential failure. And so we definitely need to repair areas like that. We do find, based on our survey, that we've seen several areas on site that exhibit the same thing. And we're going to see also on the interior where that happens again. The item 2 is really exposed rebar, which is corroding. And that's within one of the concrete lintels at the garage. This is another issue. There's pitting, weathering. Now it's exposed. Eventually the corrosion will expand and there could be a potential break in the rebar. It may be a long time before that happens, but you want to make sure that this gets shored up. Okay, it has to be repaired. We did find that this happened on at least half of the garage structures that are out there. There are 10. So the next one is the limestone facades. So the limestone facades really, they look great. Like, they are beautiful, and this is a beautiful structure. However, upon investigation behind the panels, we determined that the pin connection used to hold those limestone panels in place is not a good connection. And you could see that there was evidence of the pin connection basically bending. And so some of those panels are laterally twisted as a result. And so that could be very dangerous. We do not know the extent of an issue like that, but we have noted it in several locations on just the limestone alone. Additionally, going back to the brick, it's a beautiful common bond brick type. And there are areas where we see exposure due to eroded mortar joints. So in picture 4, you can really see that there's a darkened area, and that's basically, part of it is that it's darker, but because the downspouts were compromised, either there's holes in the downspout or some part is missing, there is erosion of the mortar between the brick. And so what that allows is water, wind-driven water, to penetrate into the building envelope. And we'll see on the other side what type of damage that's done to the facility. We noticed that in some cases there were downspouts that were missing, some that were not working. The water test proved that when they poured water down the downspouts, they actually were there long enough to see the water come through inside the building. And that's never a good sign, because you can imagine during a weather event that would only make the situation worse. And then you add into it the change in temperature, going from hot environment to a cold one, and then you'll see those cracks, and the cracks will actually begin to get wider, then allowing more water to get in. In addition, for number 4, you won't be able to see it, but in some cases, there were downspouts that were missing. There were downspouts that should have led to leaders that led to a perimeter drain around the perimeter of the building. In some cases, there were splash blocks that were missing. And also, there was a negative slope around several areas of the building where water was collecting and basically running back in towards the building because the surrounding landscape wasn't shedding water. In item 5, we had pitting on the base, which indicates that there's either weather or some sort of debris or something that may have caused the pitting that you see on the base of the building. Now, from what you see in the front, you could see the brown area. That's the pitting. So it's basically chipping away at the base of the building. What's harder to see are the cracks that are basically at the top of the white portion where the bottom of the window is. And those cracks are another avenue for water to be driven into the building. In item 6, there is the existing lintels are rusted, and separate and apart from that, like, of course, that needs to be repaired, but the windows need to be replaced as well. Those aluminum windows, many of them were cracked. And quite a few of them, while they had flashing, they did not have the end dam flashing that folds around to the side. So that lent another opportunity for water to get in. Going to the next slide.
Can I
Oh,
ask
sure.
you some questions on this? So 1 and 2 are on the garages, but are the rest of them 3 through 6, are those all the main building or some?
That's the main building, yes.
Okay.
Yes, 3 through 6, correct.
Let's keep going.
Next slide. So now, image 1 is on the inside of the gym. And in the gym, you could see there's a big crack there. That crack was taken actually above my head. And the crack indicates that this has happened over a long period of time. And the cracks in the CMU, and it's actually in CMU that had previously been repaired due to the same issue. So we've known about this for some time and tried to repair it, and now there's a new crack there that's only getting worse. Picture 2 basically shows in the gym the extent of the rotted wood. You could see a lot of the boards have heaved as a result of water coming in, and that's due in part not from the walls, but areas that have been compromised in the roof. So the roofs themselves are missing asphalt shingles. Many of the fascia board and underlayment is rotted or missing. Asphalt shingles are missing. And then in other parts of the building where there should be roof drains, those roof drains have failed. And we discovered that due to both the evidence that you see here, but also in the water test, we could see that water was just coming through. So the wood boards that are heaved are already bent, destroyed, and then surrounding those are wood that's been compromised from that water, standing water, that's now made the board soft. So it's really a good portion of it is not salvageable, let's say.
Mr. Roberts?
I was wondering what you meant when you said that a portion was repaired of the crack in there. You repaired it or who repaired it?
No, someone repaired this at some point. We could tell because you could see in the CMU that there's a break, a clear break where someone had come in and parged it or somehow otherwise patched it at some previous point
Huh.
and then
Okay.
came back in. And now you could see a crack in the same area.
I was just wondering. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah, sure, sure.
What does CMU mean? What does that acronym mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. Concrete masonry unit. Like cinder block. And then in picture 3, this one we saw back in 2020. This is on the 2nd floor now. And in this area, when we did the initial site investigation, the paint in those corners where you see the graffiti, they basically it was bulbous because it was filled with water at the time that we did our initial walkthrough. Since that time, the water's gone, right? So those balloons popped and you could see where layers of the paint is falling away. So that used to be filled with water. And so that's another indication of the amount of water that's been getting into the building, causing it some issues. One of the things I do want to touch on, since we're on this picture too, is the hazardous materials testing. So we did test for lead, mercury, and asbestos. We were able to find that some of the paint samples, there were over 300 samples taken in this building for lead. And they determined that some of the wall surfaces had tested positive for lead. And also with the floors, the testing for asbestos, the smaller tiles, the black and green tiles that show up as a checkerboard in that image, some of those also tested positive for asbestos.
Of course, that's not surprising for a building of this age.
Right, 1950s. This is true. And I could go into a little bit more detail about what that is. For the testing for asbestos, out of 52 samples, 5 samples came back positive. Positive in this case is based on EPA 40 CFR requirements. And the results of 1%, anything that's greater than 1%, is considered positive. And so the green linoleum tiles, we found 5% creosote tile. The black linoleum, and this was not all of them, but some, black linoleum was also 5%. Creosote tile, which is a carcinogenic material. The black fiberglass fibrous wrap that's throughout the building in different locations came in at 10%. And the gray pipe fittings showed up as 40%. So that was extremely high. I asked specifically ECS if this was the pipe itself or the insulation. And so in this case, it was the actual pipe fittings themselves that tested positive. In addition to that, the white cellulose, which is an insulating material, is testing at 55% of that carcinogenic. So that's one part. And then for the lead, out of 229 samples, 37 of them tested positive for lead. And some of the main culprits were the painted wall surfaces, the jambs, doors, door casings, and ceiling beams. Where it wasn't found was in the window lintels, the pipes, the roll-up door casings, the baseboards, the crown moldings, the stairs, or the handrails, which is kind of surprising to me. And then I want to backtrack to asbestos. For asbestos, it was not found in the drywall, was not found in the plaster, not found in the parging, not found in the grout or the ceiling tiles, or even some of the black floor tiles. And it was also not found in the mastic, which I was very surprised by. We thought that for sure it would be present, and the mastic is the glue that goes underneath of the tiles that you set in for the floor. We thought for sure those would be positive, and it did not show up positive at all.
So is that because of remediation at some point, or it just
I'm not
wasn't there from the
sure.
beginning?
I
I'm not
mean,
sure.
those tiles are probably the original tiles. They just didn't use one that had mastic, I guess. That had asbestos. Yeah, it just didn't have asbestos. Thank you. Yes.
So I guess, does that make it any easier to do mitigation if it's really mostly in the floors where the asbestos is, or does it not really make a difference in the grand scheme of things? once
Doesn't
you
really
find
matter.
asbestos?
Yeah,
Okay.
it won't really matter. And part of the biggest concern is when, you've got to hire someone who's certified to remove this hazardous material and collect it properly, and also take it to a facility that's certified to handle hazardous material. But going in and actually removing the tiles, you've got to separate it from the glue underneath. Then it's broken. And when it's broken, it's friable. And so that releases a lot of the dust that, is harmful to us.
Well, you don't always have to remove the
You
stuff.
don't. You can
encase it.
encapsulate.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Which
could
is-
certainly encapsulate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Very good point. And encapsulation, to your point, would be we would keep it in place. And as long as you're not breaking any of it and making it friable, you have to be really careful about sealing all of the seams. But once it's in place and you're completely covering those surfaces, then you're pretty much mitigating the carcinogenic effect of it.
I think that may have been done to a fair number of the original GHI units that were built in 1935, 1936, 1937. Yeah, but it's mitigated, sealed, I guess.
Yes.
Seems like something you'd have to then if it makes it challenging to do some renovations later on, especially if you don't
Especially
realize.
If you live there and you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not good.
It's not something that anyone can just do and say, oh, I'll just roll some flooring on top of it. No, it's not that easy. But it is definitely doable, yes. And then just moving quickly through the rest of it, picture 4 is from the first floor, and that is where you enter into the facility. The tile grid, the acoustical tile grid was broken, and you could see up into the concrete slab for the floor slab up above, and the concrete beam. This is something that is repairable, but I think part of it is we were able to see that the electrical is surface mounted, all the electrical throughout the facility the toggle switches, the outlet plates, everything is surface mounted within. And then the next image, number 5, is we did discover that there were brownish and greenish areas on the walls. And that indicated that there was moisture trapped within the walls and also in the floors. And so we identified that as being mold within those spaces. So there are lots of areas where that occurs. And number 6 is basically the condition of the plumbing fixtures. So we did have floor mounted water closets, floor mounted urinals, and wall mounted sinks. A lot of the plumbing had been removed somehow. And a lot of the fixtures are beyond expected useful life. And so we would certainly want to replace those. And then going on to the last slide. So this is dealing with some of the other systems within the facility. Throughout, we identified teledata panels as well as electric panels that no longer had their covers on them. We have Pepco service that is supplied to the building, and unfortunately, there was no power available upon our site visits, and so we weren't able to test things out to find out if they were functioning or not. But based on the condition of them, they'd have to be replaced, of course, right? And then item 2, we have a gas-fired steam boiler, and which is well past its expected useful life, as well as a 100-gallon gas fired water heater, which was not as old, but also needs to be replaced too. One thing that we found was a lot of corroded pipes, so leading to and from this equipment. And one of the other things that was a major factor too is that there was no air intake. So the only air intake was actually through an operable window. That will never meet any codes for today, of course. And then the exhaust. So exhaust is located in 2 places. Within the bathrooms, it's exhausted through a ducted system up to the roof and then out. And in the image, it might be a little small. You can't really tell, but the duct itself is literally right above the shower. So there's a little wall for the shower, and it's really that close. When you're in the shower, you could actually touch that duct right there. It's very strange.
Probably warmed up the shower.
Yeah, it's like it's in the shower with you, really. And then the other location is in the kitchen. So the kitchen actually has a wonderful Wolf electric stove. It's like, I think it's six or eight burners, but but it has also a huge hood, which indicates that it would be like a commercial hood for a gas fired range, but it's not. It's electric. But it does have an exhaust fan that goes. It's very low ceilings in the kitchen, and it directs to the roof up above. But those are inoperable and would need to be replaced, of course. We do have incoming gas, and the mounting is outside, of course. And then we have thin tube radiators within a lot of the spaces inside. Those are outdated, they're not functioning. You can't do a full test on them, but you could just tell based on the condition of them that they would not be usable at this point. The last picture that we have is the concealed steam pipes. This is actually in the front area next to where the fireplace is. Within this is one of the areas that was tested. And one thing is some of the insulation's been pulled away from it. And for the steam to be, you're supposed to have all the pipes wrapped thoroughly. There should not be any areas that are exposed. This we can't use anyway. It's well past its expected useful life. And so we're going to recommend, of course, that be replaced. So that's really the last slide that I have. And I will open it up for questions.
Yeah, it's very helpful. It's a lot of information to take in, but yeah, at the same time, it's not a shock. A lot of the issues that you've mentioned would be expected in an older building, but in particular with the interior to some extent as well. How much of the deficiencies could be actually attributed to the building being empty and unused for close to 10 years?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if I could quantify that, but it is something that one of our subs did identify, that it's in conjunction with the weather. There appears to have been a lack of maintenance within this building for many years prior to that. How to quantify that, I'm not really sure. And how far back that goes, I don't know.
Really, I was asking particularly about the exterior. The garages, were they built at the same time as the main building, or is it two separate initiatives?
To our knowledge, it's built at the same time.
It's from council. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, so obviously there's quite a bit that needs to be done before this building is usable. Is there
Yes.
anything based on your recommendations, things that we should try to do as soon as possible to prevent further damage? Or at this point, has it been sitting empty and damaged for so long that we shouldn't waste money until we're ready to fix the whole thing?
You might, well, I don't want to give any recommendations just yet because I rely on my subs to provide their expert opinions about that. And we technically haven't started the recommendations phase of it yet. But I do want to go back to part of what you were asking, Mr. Mayor, too, and tie those together, because one of the things that I didn't say was that in the brick itself, where we did a little bit of investigative demo, we discovered that there were areas where there were no brick ties tying back to the CMU inside. Now, not to suggest that occurred all the way around, but just in the areas that were opened up, we could see that there wasn't anything there. The reason why I say that is because if we have that type of lack of connection back to the main structure, you're going to have a lot more lateral problems around the facade than you currently see. And so I do want to hesitate to go any further with what the recommendation would be, but my estimation would be there's a lot more work that's going to be required than not. And you will have to phase it, of course. Yeah.
You said the recommendations would be coming to us in February.
Yes, so we have the site recommendations are February, And I think I said something. And then the building recommendations are coming in January. So December 5th through January 23rd, we will have the building recommendations by January 23rd. February 6th will be the site recommendations.
Mr. Roberts?
Thank you. I was wondering on the brick and the what's behind the brick. Is it just a one layer of brick? Is it just or is it a thick brick wall and then a concrete wall, or is it a concrete with brick on it? Is that what it is?
Yeah, so we did notice, because I guess there were additions at different times. So on some of the facades, we noticed that there is brick that's backed by CMU. And we did notice that within the gym and the front facade, we could tell that pretty clearly. Towards the back, though, where the gun range is, the shooting range side, there seemed to be a double width of brick, so that there was just a solid brick wall that's basically,
So it's probably like a 12-inch brick wall.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And could you see if they had drains in them, or if the drains were plugged up or something like that?
So the drains were not functioning, and that came out as part of the water test. When the WJE got on the roof and they tested the roof drains themselves.
Talking about the drains in the brickwork. All brickwork has drains in it to allow,
Right,
because
the
it's
weep
always
holes.
going to get water in, so they allow some drainage at the bottom so the water can come out.
Right, the weep holes.
Yeah.
And so when they tested and poured water in different areas, they could see that the water was not escaping the way that it should, but going into the building. So a lot of the weeps were clogged or somehow otherwise not
A
functioning.
lot of times people see, holes in there and they go back and they put caulk in it or something, and it's like, it's not supposed to be caulked.
You're not supposed to do that.
But,
And that is one thing that we noticed in several of the areas. There was extensive caulking in areas where the masonry, the grout had eroded away. And so that actually caused a worse condition than if we just left it. So we did see,
The soldiers working on that thing.
they just came out with a caulk gun and just tried to fill in between the brick,
They
and
didn't
that
have
was
the
worse.
I don't think they had the CBs out there.
Maybe not. So yeah, we did see that, and we noted that within our preliminary documentation as well.
Hey, I really appreciate this quick update on the project and just kind of keeping us surprised. It's a feasibility, it's an assessment. So this is providing us with the information that the city manager and council will need in making decisions. There may be parts of this facility that are just the cost benefit is just not there. Other parts have utilization or things that we can actually save. But without this initial information and without getting recommendations, we really can't really decisions. Mr. Summeron, I'm sorry, Ms. McKinney.
Just a follow-up from Mayor Pro Tem. In the recommendations that you deliver, will the recommendations be put in a manner that's like a phasing kind of schedule? So will the recommendations be like, here are things that you immediately should address so that it doesn't worsen the condition of the building anymore? Here in the next phase, this is what you would need to do if you need to actually start remediating the actual building. Is that how you would be presenting them, or?
So the way that we have it set up, and we can certainly include a chart that prioritizes those recommendations based on the deficiencies. The way that we have it set up is really by discipline. And so like the structural person will say, okay, you got to do these things. And then the MEP person, you know, you got to replace all of the mechanical equipment. And so being able to provide just a little chart that would show priority either by color or by number. Number ones would be, yeah, you need to tackle these immediately. We could certainly include a chart like that for you. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that'd be helpful. Thanks.
Mr. Samaron and Mr. George, I just wanted to ask a quick question. Greenbelt is blessed to have more infrastructure than most other cities our size. So many buildings, and a good number of them are historic. So I'm just wondering, in terms of the way that we maintain our buildings, are we constrained, or do we adhere to the same code standards that are required by county building code, or as a municipality, are we able to set our own standards if they're higher than the county?
When it comes to making repairs from a permitting process, we must adhere to county standards. My personal philosophy is that we should aim to build to the best and safest standards that we can, regardless of where the minimum standard is. Obviously, we have to meet the minimum statutory standards, but whenever possible, we should build this as best as we can, as safe as we can. To your question about the recommendations for immediate repairs, while we have not received recommendations yet, there are some steps we take to prevent further damage to the structure. There are roof leaks. I've tasked the Public Works team to explore low-cost options to stop some of those leaks, such as tarping over the holes on the roof. We've added breakers for temporary powers for the surveillance systems that we're installing at the building right now. We're surveilling the property with the trailer cameras. We have run temporary power to different locations of the building to install cameras at the different corners of the building. We spent a lot of money removing the graffiti from the building, and we want to keep it graffiti free. So we need to add the surveillance. There's also an active water line coming into the building, into one of the utility rooms that council observed during our site visit. We have shut off the water because there's a leak from that water line. So we want to stop those leaks. So those are things that we've taken proactive steps towards preventing further damage to the structure.
Well, thank you. Appreciate the update. Got any questions? Sir, do you have a question? If you'd like to step up to the microphone.
Bill Orleans resident. Ms. Thomas, is it? Ms. Thomas indicated that she and her firm, which I didn't get the name of, I'll ask later, weren't prepared for full preliminary feasibility assessment as yet, but would be doing so later. I'm just wondering, do these 3 or 4 slides that were shown consist of what you've provided Mr. Solomon and Mr. George thus far? And I have a second question.
No, it's a bit more extensive than that.
All right. The mayor indicated in introducing you that council had approved this contract about a month ago. I may have missed some of that meeting. But you alluded to the fact that you were working for the city assessing the Armory back in 2020. Was that an earlier contract that your firm had with the city of Greenville?
Oh, no. So we were walking through the facility because the city had offered it as an RFP back in 2020. And we, like many, I think there were like 40 teams of architecture engineer firms that were there the same day. And so we all were walking through the facility that day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, well, thank you so much. I don't see any other further questions online or in the room. So at this point, we're going to move on to the second half of our work session. So please keep us informed. This has been a very helpful briefing that we've received just to get a sense of where we are, where we may be. So to me, no big shocks, but because the building's been empty for quite some time, but it sounds like there's the possibility that quite a bit of work may be needed.
Quite a bit of work, but some parts are really worth taking a second look at, like the fireplace and different things too. So it's a beautiful building, and we're just thrilled to be a part of it.
Looking forward to the pool table that's in there.
Yeah, there is a pool table, but
it's in
the
pretty
pool
good shape.
table's not in very good shape.
Okay, just checking.
I know that came up before.
Hey, thank you so much.
Oh, sorry.
That's what happens when the building's been sitting empty and water has gotten in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the second half of our work session will be a discussion with the Ethics Commission as we take a close look at the current city ethics ordinance. It's crucial that this ordinance be compliant with state law and state regulations, and there have been modifications to state law, and so we need to make some updates. And in addition to that, I believe there's some other suggestions, and I can't really recall the last time we discussed this ethics ordinance, perhaps 8 or 9 years ago. But thank you so much for being here, David. And
Sir.
Produce,
Yeah, I'm David Shapiro, outgoing chair of the Ethics Commission, Isaiah Horton, incoming chair.
hey, and who else is on the commission? Is 5 people or 4 people?
4, one vacancy. We have David Benak as incoming vice chair, and Bob Zugby, an original member,
Yeah,
who is still
hanging
with
in
us.
there. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
and we're very appreciative that after many years and my predecessors, Glinda Peterson's urging, we've been able to get this on the agenda and move forward with this. Because it's been an awkward thing for the state to say, can you certify every October that you are in compliance with the state's act? And we say, working on it. And now we can say, we're getting there.
Well, these legislative sessions happen every year, so from time to time there are significant changes to the state law. So the recommendation, as you said, though, there have been some recommendations that you had put forward or discussed in the past that have not been incorporated into our current ordinance. So I'm not sure how you want to do this, but we've got the entire ordinance here. I'm wondering, is there some way to actually summarize or to kind of zero in on the sections that we need to change?
May I jump in, David? Sure. I just want to provide a little more context. I appreciate, David, for all the work that you've done. I remember being fresh on the team, and one of the first recommendations or the reports sitting on my desk is, hey, we have an outdated public ethics ordinance that used to be updated. It's been a request for years. So, David, I'm sorry that we haven't been able to get it done in the last 14 months that I've been here, but it's been on my radar. It's now before council after so many years. So I'm glad that we're at this juncture. There are, in terms of a model, I want to give some context, if I may, David, on the models. There are several public ethics models to look at. I had spoken with David about the town of Cheverly adopting having been the municipality who with the newest public ethics ordinance. The proposal that David and the team are putting forward is a state recommended framework, and it covers all the legal compliance requirements. So it is backed by the state recommendation. So what you're seeing before you is something that has been vetted. And David, did I cover the context enough?
Sure. And going into specifics, Pansy Watson, who's the assistant chair of the State Ethics Board, helped a great deal. What she did is she said, we have 2 models, Model A and Model B, and you have to use Model A because you're a city that has to have lobbying requirements. And so that cut that knot. And then we looked at what Chevrolet had done, looked at what the state did, and here's what I did. And put before our board, which discussed it. We took where the state said county, city, or town, and we plugged in Greenbelt, where it said board or whatever, he said ethics commission or city council as appropriate. And that's the main thing that we did. The only additional thing is that where it said, with the approval of the ethics commission, we said, with the written approval. So there's no question. And where it said the spouse or the family or the immediate family or the qualified family, in terms of, is there conflict of interest because your interests are affected and your job is to make a monetary decision that affects them, we just said qualified family. One term, basically. And we took the state's definition of qualified family and added some terms from Chevrolet about household. So we're not talking your spouse and then saying, or spousal equivalent, or you should know that that's your spousal equivalent even if you're not fully married, so you should apply. Just make it a little simpler and clearer for everyone. And okay, it doesn't mention your parent who you're taking care of, but you're managing the stocks of them. No, they're part of your house. So we try to bring it all, make it in there simple for people to look at. And there's still going to be judgment. And there was one little piece of clarification where this clause referred to that clause. I said, well, that clause is an exception, but just try to make it intelligible to people. That's about it. I mean, if you go through line by line, I'm sure you'll find a thing or two, but that's what we did.
Yeah, I read through it as carefully as I could. So some of the things that jumped out at me, just in terms of changes that the that the Senate or House had made, I noticed that there was a section 9, where they talked about, they actually included the University of Maryland medical system in the disclosures, and I think that's a result of something that happened up in Baltimore with the mayor a few years ago. But looking through and thinking about conflicts of interest in general, I think often in life, many of us have conflicts of interest. I don't have any right now, but so as council members, we make decisions. So when there is a conflict of interest, and this is actually in the forms, the financial disclosures and the forms that we fill out, we have to declare that there is a conflict. And if an issue comes up where we're making a decision, we, as council members, would recuse ourselves and not weigh in. So I think it's important to be aware of that. I noticed, there's always a distinction between, in these kinds of documents, between statements where it says council or the commission may, as opposed to council or the commission shall. So that sort of leaves discretion. And, in reading through here, I don't think I saw any shalls. I think I saw mays. Is that correct?
I didn't bring my computer with me. Basically, I copied what was there. The only thing is there was a piece in our ethics code, our ethics ordinance from 2013 or 20, whatever it was, that wasn't in the state. And I brought that in because I figured we wanted it. It's no conflict. We should keep it unless you folks decide otherwise.
Shall's in section 2-109.
That's why contacts are kind of fogging up right now. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing I found challenging is, and I actually, if we want to show it up on the screen, I have a document where I fixed the indenting because the PDF was, I found it very hard to parse. and there were some missing labels and trying to figure out which was subject to the next one. So I have that, I can share it so that we have it fixed, because I found it very confusing trying to follow which one was that referring to. So that was a big one. I think one question I had was, it has the list of the defined terms, but then it defines them at the end. Why don't we just put the definitions right at the beginning?
Sure. We can have them at the beginning, the state has them at the beginning, Chevrolet put them at the end.
Okay.
And we looked at it and we said, here we have a couple of pages of terms
Yeah,
at the
yeah, that's
beginning,
true.
which a lot of people going to go through this code, they aren't going to need to know them. And why don't we just say, hey, here are terms, or alternately, use a different type font where defined terms of art appear in the document, a monospace or something like that, or small caps, and then people know to look it up. Either is fine. I mean, this is just what we thought might make more sense, but put them where you want them. That'll cut out one section then.
So moving to the front.
Well, it seemed odd. I mean, I'm open to other opinions on that. I do get the point of, if you have to scroll through all the definitions, maybe that'll slow some people down. It just seemed like, I don't know, it just seemed odd to me to say these are going to be defined later. But I don't know if other people have thoughts on that.
I mean, it made sense to me because I felt like that was sort of the glossary, which you generally find at the end as an editor. To me, that makes sense.
It makes sense to me.
And makes them, yeah.
Why do we start at section 2-106?
I tried to map onto our code,
Okay.
translating from the state code to our numbering.
Okay.
Did I get it all right? I have no idea.
Okay. I was just curious
Other
because I
members of
didn't
the
go look at.
commission looked at it and found at least one thing that I'd screwed up, and we corrected
I didn't
that.
go back and look at the rest of the city code. I was just start at 106.
Certainly, when we bring it to council for vote, we will make sure that the numbers lined up, and it will likely be a repeal and replacement of those sections of the code.
Let's see, council, I know you guys have questions. It's a lot to pour through and study in just a few days.
Yeah,
But,
I guess. Yeah. Would also love if we can to get the indenting right. There were a lot of these blanks. I don't know if that's something that seems like that could potentially cause some confusion. So I mean, even thinking about like just having this statement is the A, and then this is 1 and 2. These are kind of sort of nitpicky things, but when I fixed the indenting, I noticed some of those things.
Let's see, on page 7, I think it was, item number 9-2-1. I remember council had a lot of discussions about trying to put some teeth into compliance around filing campaign reports and disclosures. So that $5 per day.
Which section is that? Because this one.
9-2-1.
Well,
Maybe it's
but-
page 7.
Well, but which section?
I'm on page 7.
So it's section 1-10? 1-110, 2-110, 2-110.
It's 9-2-1. I'm not sure which page.
Yeah, well,
It's page 6 of the packet. It's page 6 on the bottom item. So it will be section 2-109, item, what did I see?
May I speak to this, Mr. Mayor?
The mayor's asking about the late fee for the financial disclosure form.
Sure. We were concerned about two things there. One, are the fees and the maximum fee appropriate to serve as deterrents in today's economy? And two, is it reasonable that the requirement for a candidate for office to submit ends up with their not being a candidate, whereas if they're a candidate for re-election, it's different. And Mr. Horton looked at this and the way we put it to is we punted it to what the state offered, but the state requirement is that we want to have at least as rigorous a code. There's nothing to say you can't make it different as long as it accomplishes the purpose, maybe better. As you're saying, with respect to
Yes.
design, we want the best. Mr. Summerlin said that.
So what did you think about that, Mr. Horton? Did you look at Cheverly or look at some other municipalities? Should light up if it works. That one's not working.
So we thought the status quo will work. Just relying on our experience, on my experience so far on the commission, and of course, Mr. Zuxby's history of experience with the commission. And we thought the status quo is where we're going to stay. And
No, that's exactly what we said. Okay, we'll take what we're given, punt it to you, and then you can think about it.
Appreciate that. But I do remember that we discussed this on council and kind of went back and forth. I guess it must have been 7 or 8 years. Ms. Pope, do you remember? Yeah, when was that? It's been a while, and the issues come up from time to time. So,
Mr. Mayor, from my notes, is there a number that you'd like to see? Currently, it says assess a late fee for $5 per day for a maximum of $500 for failure to file a timely, file a financial disclosure statement as required.
no, we talked about that, and we landed on the $5 and the $500 because this is Greenbelt, and even though the economy has changed, and maybe for some people that's not enough to really be a deterrent. But those were good numbers, but we also thought that compliance was very important, so we wanted to have something in there.
For context, that would mean that a report would be up to 100 days to hit that maximum fee.
It's quite a long time.
Time if you're late 100 days. I mean, I don't know if we should even have that in there.
And that's one of the clauses where there's a may, because, if someone falls ill or has to, perhaps a veteran or someone on active duty and has to leave the country, I suppose those are instances where discretion would be involved. But the idea is people should turn these in a timely fashion.
Well, your treasurer would take care of that, right?
Yeah.
Not you yourself, basically. I mean, there should be somebody here that's able to provide that document in a timely manner.
It's true. That's true.
Well, the forms are available online. Our clerks also make them available, so they are readily available.
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly easy to get your report filed, I would say, in a timely manner.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I think it does seem like that maybe we should think about whether that's the right amount, or even sort of a escalating if it's, maybe that's too complicated, but, a smaller amount for the first bit and then escalates if it's really late, that after a certain point, it's a higher amount. I guess the other one thing, and I don't know if this is something that belongs in here or not, but we've also had to fill out additional sort of paperwork related to audits and things like that. I wonder if that is something, having those turned in late, is also something that should be addressed here. Not just for elections, but other times when, not just the annual disclosures, but we've had at times had to turn in other paperwork that needed to be done for.
No, I don't think this is the right place for that. But with the financial disclosures, things happen. So over the years, I have seen candidates rushing around. Maybe there's an error or something on their form, so they have to take it and do it again. So they're a day late or 2 or 3 days late. I mean, that's one thing, but a long time, a month, more than that. I mean, there's really no excuse for that. I mean,
Election will be. Yeah, I mean,
I have a question. So then how do, I agree, maybe we should look at the fee structure, but I'm wondering how this will then translate to the actual forms that fill out, because I think maybe part of the reason why if there has been anybody that has been late, I think the forms are a bit confusing. So I'm wondering how that translates into making adjustments on that form as well. So, and I don't know if that was also part of your review process in that or not, or if it was mainly just looking at the code itself.
We know from the code that we were offered by the state and have tweaked to offer you that there are a bunch of changes that are going to need to be made to the forms, a bunch of procedures that we're supposed to create, and that's going to be a lot of work under the new leadership, and we want to make it intelligible. Meanwhile, city staff has been providing the forms early, has been providing reminders well before the time. There's never been a question of, oh, you made a mistake. Hey, let me point out the mistake and get the thing back to me. That being an issue. That's been an informal part of procedures. Maybe Mr. Horton and the commission will decide to formalize it. But again, this Greenbelt, we're trying to be human. We're trying to be understanding. But, you know, when I have access to the financial disclosure form early, get sick a week after it's due, it gets fuzzy.
One suggestion that I've heard, one of the members of council brought up the idea of having some sort of a training session for campaign treasurers before an election. I guess as soon as people turn in their initial paperwork, just a training session might be kind of helpful because, you know, it can be a little confusing.
Well, I mean, I think and even for candidates too, like it's important that candidates understand the role that their treasurer is playing fully. I don't know that, you know, they always do. It's a really big responsibility that when you ask someone to be the treasurer of your campaign. So,
That's true.
but I do think that could be helpful, having that kind of training, something just to help them know. And this would be a place where you could sort of reinforce those deadlines, right? And those, you know, fees and late fees and things like that.
So as a general point, is that something the commission would be, you know, willing or interested in helping with, maybe working with the clerk to do that kind of a workshop early on?
We'd be interested in that. I'd like to raise that with the other members of the commission and get their feedback as to how that could happen and Shania on that.
Maybe even record a video that's available online.
So that's a good idea. Yeah, a video. Yeah. Let's see, Mr. Orleans, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Reference was made earlier to the financial disclosure statements and potential conflicts of interest. Not every conflict of interest is a financial question. Not every ethical question is a financial question. At the commission's most recent meeting, at least as far as I know, it was about 2 weeks ago, in approving the minutes of the previous meeting, which I had to miss, unfortunately, reference in the minutes was made to an individual who had requested a dispensation of necessity of filing a part of that individual's financial report as a city employee. And in passing, in discussion after that, I learned the name of the individual. I won't repeat, it's not necessary. And the commission apparently agreed in that previous meeting, which I had missed, that it was not necessary. Well, you know, it happens that that individual 2 years ago received a promotion within the city, something that the commission had no role in. And the Employee Relations Board did, because another city employee who had not been aware of that promotional opportunity complained about it and sought a respite from the Employee Relations Board, which had an open hearing and then it had a closed hearing. and found that the city was not in error in allowing an unnoticed promotional opportunity to go to someone who's essentially a favorite son within the city. Now, there's no suggestion that anybody paid money to anybody for this, but there's an ethical question of what kind of ethos do we who live in Greenbelt want to present to others, and how do we abide by that ethos ourselves just within the city of Greenbelt? It's not a financial thing. It's nothing you can necessarily delineate in a financial disclosure statement. But I would suggest that in the future, unlike in the past, if there's an item before the Employee Relations Board where a city employee is presenting a grievance, maybe the Ethics Commission should be called in to sit with the Employee Relations Board to make a determination of whether ethical practices were fully practiced by city staff, departmental managers in making such a promotion. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I think there's a provision in here where anyone can actually ask for an opinion of the Ethics Commission, a written opinion. So, but more generally, in terms of the ordinance, I guess we've been talking about council, but are there some modifications that really are more aimed towards staff and advisory board members?
I'm sorry. Yes, there are elements that are for the council, advisory board members, and staff. It's all there. Yeah, and it's very similar.
Not all advisory board members have to fill out the financial disclosures, like APB and 2 or 3 of the other committees.
Us simply because who guards the guardians and the election board, I believe.
Board of Elections, yeah, that makes sense. Hey, so let's talk a little bit more. Are there some other points that anyone wants to bring up?
I had sort of a stray question. I was thinking about this one. So the solicitation and acceptance of gifts, I was thinking about this. An official or employee may not solicit any gift. What made me think of that was in Greenbelt, there's a group called Buy Nothing, where you can ask for things that you're looking for. Usually it's not anything big, but I'm looking for, does anybody have tennis shoes, this size or whatever? Is that, it seems interesting. I was just thinking about the interaction of an organization like that, where you're sort of asking for people, not the things that they already have around their house, or even, it could be even like completely non-valuable things. But I think somebody was asking recently for looking for paper grocery store bags, right. Something of minimal value, but in theory, that's a gift. How does that fit with this? How do you see something like that organization fitting in with this ethics code?
Well, in my opinion.
Either of you, whoever wants to.
Is this on? No.
I wasn't the one asking for the grocery bags. I was just using that as an example of a very small, like very little monetary value. But technically, you're soliciting a gift because you're asking, does anybody have any extra paper grocery bags?
Yeah, I wouldn't be a sticker on that, to be honest with you. Sometimes when you all report and you share those items, we kind of appreciate that. But it's if it's not there, the grocery bag that you received, then I wouldn't say it's a high crime.
Well, and I guess sometimes people do ask for more expensive things. I think that people are looking for. Somebody who's on Buy Nothing, help me think of a good example.
Like an air fryer, people have asked for like an air fryer or a microwave, right? Like a small appliance.
Yeah.
Well, I think the issue really is not so much the generic ask, but if the person responds and they happen to be a developer that's getting ready to build a skyrise in Greenbelt, it's, I've got an air fryer.
And I got the apartment that goes with it.
That's generally what we look for at anyone accepting a gift from any entity doing business before the city, as we do a magnifying glass on those sorts of items. But what you're referencing, I believe, is some sort of charity or organization.
No, it's a Facebook group, really. It's just a Facebook group that's called
Oh.
Buy Nothing, and the idea is, but the way it's framed, and I realize this is just a small. This is something that occurred to me. The way it's framed is you can put up things that you have as gifts. I am offering my extra microwave if anybody wants it, or you can put out a wish and say, does anybody have one of these to gift me? My microwave broke. Does anybody have one? So you're asking for a microwave, generally soliciting a gift. But
Do that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works. So if you do this, you're expecting to exchange something with someone you don't really know.
yeah,
okay.
it's just. I mean, it's all greenbelters. It's all people within the city.
Have you done this before?
Yeah, I mean, I've not
right.
given away a microwave.
Has the person in the big?
I've seen from time to time, I've seen people say, oh, I need a computer monitor.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
Mason jars or.
Yeah, like often it's really
Small things.
small things, like I said, like grocery bags. But sometimes it's things like I don't know.
I mean, if you posted on there, you're looking for a microwave, and the head of Pepco shows up with a microwave.
Yeah, no, maybe that's a problem. I don't know.
Yeah, well, there are guidance right in here about not just violations, but appearance of violation.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Mr. Horton's talking about. Free Cycle is another network like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that you can put up things that you're looking for, right?
You seek.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's also definitions of gifts in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it worth more than $20 in its used condition? Yeah. Is it more than $100 a year? But it gets into some fine details, and I think if somebody brought somebody before with a complaint to the Ethics Commission or to their boss, and ultimately Mr. Summerall, and said, hey, what are they doing asking for this? Or what are they doing accepting this? We'd say, do they have any power over this person? Is there any money involved for the city? And if the answer was no, we'd say, thanks, but you missed the point here.
But even as you said, the appearance, if it looks funny, if it smells funny, then even if it's not, that's still something that you shouldn't do.
So it seems like, I mean, the safest course would be to not ask for for an elected official, for example, not to ask for anything of particular monetary valuable. That maybe it's okay to ask for, does anybody have any extra grocery bags? But it's not okay, does anyone have an extra flat screen TV? Which there have been some given away on Buy Nothing. Sometimes it's, I tried this juice and I didn't like it. Does anybody want the rest of it? But sometimes it is like, I'm seriously, you should be in this crew post way. It's entertaining.
But I do think a lot of times it's sort of the equivalent of, borrowing a cup of sugar from your neighbor,
Right.
but you're never really going to return the cup of sugar, right? They're giving you a cup of sugar. So I think a lot of the exchanges on Buy Nothing are more in that vein, which I don't think apply to this ordinance.
So that's gifts. So all of the definitions came directly from the state, or they came from the Chevrolet ordinance? Okay. Because, I mean, even the word gift is sort of...
By person, some words were brought in from the Chevrolet definition of household, and I threw in the written. I took out, after checking with Pansy Watson, the Assistant State Counsel, the term ministerial, because she said as long as your administrative function should not have a conflict. We don't say administrative and ministerial, because I wasn't sure what it meant, and she said, yeah, take it out.
Hey, did you actually talk with the folks over at Chevrolet? Because one thing that we might do, council, is before this comes up, is just to check. They have an ethics commission there. Just check with them to see if there's some issues. So you did talk to them?
Did we talk with them? Not since they published their code. They contacted us or me initially when they were working on developing their code.
Okay.
But since they came up with it, no, that's something you could add if you wanted to touch
check
base
to
and
see if
say,
they had any
hey, our
issues.
commission did this stuff. What do you think of it? Sure.
Okay, that's helpful. Ms. Council Member, please.
Just a quick question. In one of the sections, I don't know what page it's on, like page 9 someplace, where it says, for statements filed after January 1st, 2019, the commissioner office designated by the commission. I'm just wondering why that specific date. Was that when there was a specific code change, a law, or anything like that? And does that date need to change?
I don't believe that date needs to change. I didn't ask Ms. Watson what the history of it was. We can contact her if you wish.
Excuse me, after this date, commission may not provide public access to an individual's home address in the individual's designated as the individual's home address. So if there was a statement after it, I feel like, I don't know why that date in particular.
We
That's
certainly
all.
can ask her, can we just say, the commission may not?
Exactly.
Since it's past that
Exactly,
date.
because then it seems like we'd
Yeah.
have to update that at a certain point, just take the date out.
You said that was 2019, so that would have been, I don't know, 15 years ago? Or- Five. And maybe there's something to that. Yeah, my only comment, as we kind of wrap up with this, is, I got to tell you, I think getting those financial disclosure forms in a timely manner is important. So somehow I'd like to close the loop a little bit more on that. What's the rest of council think?
In terms of deciding what the amount is, or?
Not so much the amount, or just, if somehow there's not compliance, and not leaving it as a may, but more as a shall.
Just the fees?
Yeah.
The fee structure, you mean?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Otherwise, it seems a little arbitrary. I think in the past, there have been instances where people have been 2 or 3 days late, and they did get a fine.
I did, yes, I was 2 days one time. Yeah. Yeah. One time, we were late 2 days.
Well, I think, so I guess the question is,
And
so
I did
it's
pay my
the
fine,
commission may, if the reasoning for doing may instead of shall was to take into account the possibility of extenuating circumstances that we can't predict, I'm not sure that it seems like if there's no good reason why it's late, then I would hope that the commission would choose to charge the late fee. But if it's something where, I don't know, the day before it was due, somebody had a really serious incident and is in the hospital, then maybe they need to get a little bit of leeway.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm not sure how much I'm not sure that it is necessary to put shall if the commission is likely to do that if it comes up, but doing shall then doesn't leave the flexibility for truly exceptional circumstances.
Part of our remit going forward is to develop procedures. And one thing we discussed with Ms. Lashley Mullen and among ourselves to some degree is setting a procedure. When does she notify people, hey folks, this is due? When does she notify them, hey, this is late? And when do penalties start, so that it is set forward and not something confusing and unclear and nebulous? And this may speak to your concern, Pro Tem Mayor.
Ms. Pope.
I think what I'm thinking is that, and it needs to be consistent. So I think in the past, I feel that some had to pay the fine and maybe others did not. And I think if we do it consistently. Maybe we should mention that. And one rule is good for everyone. I think that would be that's my concern. That I don't see anything there that we need to be consistent with that.
Lashley Mullen. Uh-huh.
Financial,
I think I'm talking about both, but, well, she's talking about with the fine. The annual one.
oh, so we're, okay, well, thank you for clarifying that, because I think I'm not the only one that was thinking that right now, right?
Talking about both.
Okay.
But also, you mentioned something about doing things in writing. So, I think maybe if there's a mitigating circumstance, the individual really does need to submit something in writing to explain or to ask for that, for the fine or whatever not to be implemented. That seems reasonable, does it not?
Sounds like that could be part of the procedures that David was talking about developing.
Let's see, any other comments? Anybody online?
I don't think I saw anybody online. I had one question at the beginning, just wondering if this was like trying to figure out, so in this very first paragraph, it talks about or I guess it's technically C here, the elected officials, employees, and individuals appointed to boards and commissions. Is the second officials there redundant? Because the only officials that this applies to is some individuals appointed to boards and commissions.
Sure. I'm not wedded to the wording.
Okay.
What I would like to say, well, two things, Mayor Pro Tem. Number one, thank you for working on the indents.
It was bothering me. I couldn't leave it be.
Number two, what I told Ms. Watson is, hey, I came up with something, we talked about it, we adjusted it a bit. We agreed to present it to you without running it by her. You're looking at it. You're then going to bring it to a formal meeting before the public. Between now and then, with whatever tweaks you want to suggest, it seems like an awfully good idea to pass it by the State Ethics Commission and let Ms. Watson have a look at it.
It's a good idea.
There are other people who have to report on their financial disclosures. There are appointed officials that lead directors, I believe, that lead certain city agencies or what have you. And I believe that's what we were getting to at that redundant second officials thing. I think we should do a better job defining that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe we can replace that with officers, because we have employees with specific official functions: the treasurer, the city manager, the clerk, that are officers.
And I guess maybe then, in some senses, though, then that's talking about certain employees in access public ethics to require, because really it's not all employees either. So so in some senses, to be really clear, it's city elected officials, certain employees, and individuals appointed to selected boards and commissions are really who this applies to. So I guess that might be because we're not saying that all employees have to fill this out.
And to some extent, that is mandated by the state. So I'm still stuck on this thing with the compliance on the financial disclosures. So I'm just wondering, the penalties and whatnot, did they have them in Cheverly? And with the state, are there consequences for not filing on a timely basis?
What's in there that I think $5?
So that's the state mandate.
There's a state minimum, yeah, state suggestion, yeah,
Is that what Cheverly has, the $5 a day?
as I recall.
Okay.
Hey, any other comments?
Well, and I guess so. Is the penalty different then for the election ones? Is that set out in the election code rather than? So that's, I guess, where that amount is.
Yeah.
So if this is really more employees, although it does still seem like 100 days at $5 a day to get to the maximum. That's a long time for somebody not to turn in their financial disclosure form.
Submit something in writing and, it needs to be vetted.
The rates are different for the two forms. The other one's $35? $35 a day. Is that right, David? 25, okay.
Well, and I think for before an election, it actually makes sense for it to be a somewhat harsher penalty right before, because you need to have that in before the election happens. Whereas if it's I mean, there's not really that much of an excuse for an employee to not be able to get it in by April 30th, because it's something that happens every year and it's not surprising. But it is a little bit of a different, it's perhaps less immediately significant if it's not turned in as quickly compared to the election, where there is actually kind of a deadline.
Well, it's more time sensitive, right?
Yeah.
Elections, when you have elections, it's more time sensitive. With the other document here is, you have a little bit more.
Yeah, and if a written variance needs to be submitted, then if someone was questioning that, they could ask for an opinion from the Ethics Commission for why the variance was granted. And that would be the transparency piece.
Well, our agreement would be in writing. That's the intent that I had. If we agreed to a variance, but I think I can speak to another concern of yours, Mr. Mayor, which is this idea of, 100 days? They can wait 100 days? Our procedures are, yes, the fine gets started, but meanwhile, at any point, we can ask staff to send them a reminder. We can refer them to City Council. It doesn't have to be 100 days. It can be under Mr. Horton. So that there's this procedure that is the same for everyone.
It's interesting to think about that. Any other comments? Well, I want to thank the two of you and the other members of the commission as well for the work that you do. Just navigating where the criteria may not be all that clear, and just interpreting what the state has asked and working with the administration and whatnot. I really love the idea of doing some sort of a training session of video. You guys could star on the video, the two of you. But I think that would be really, really helpful. So, Mr. Shapiro, I really appreciate your service. You're stepping down in the near future?
Well, we like to rotate the chairmanship of the chairing of the commission. So, yeah. Childcare duties tonight, so couldn't make it.
Please share our appreciation with them for the work that you're doing. This will probably come up at a work session, probably at a meeting, probably not this month, but possibly.
Do you want another work session on this?
No, I don't think that's necessary.
Would you like us to move right into code amendments? Okay, excellent.
Yeah, and it sounds like that might be a little bit more review, as Mr. Shapiro suggested, some other people to look through it. Yeah.
Yeah, I really would like to maybe just ask Chevrolet, what they were thinking at this points as they approved their ordinance.
How would you like that interaction with Chevrolet? Would you like me to schedule a meeting with council or select members of council?
I'll ask the mayor. How do you think, council? What do you think the best way? Do you think that's a good idea? What do you think the best way?
I think it.
But
No, but I think if you wanted to reach out to the mayor and then just share back and just report back to us if they have anything relevant to share with the rest of council, that seems reasonable to me.
I think I can do that. Yeah.
And just for background, Jason Deloche is also the solicitor for Chevrolet.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
So
That reminds me of something that I did note that I forgot to mention. I think it says city attorney, but I think in our budget and everything it says city solicitor. So that's one that I'm not sure that I did track changes on this, but I did note that one.
Yeah, and I saw that also, and it says that if there's a conflict of interest, we would allocate funds to hire another attorney. But in this case, we would probably just work with someone else from the same firm. That's what we've done in the past.
Correct, that's what we do now when there's a conflict of interest. Mhm. And we also do that when there's certain expertise that we want, that we need, that is not part of our solicitor.
That came up recently because our city solicitor is also a orphans court judge.
Yeah.
Yes, and has a relationship with the county, so if you're thinking of fire department situation, we wanted somebody with that particular expertise, and wouldn't have any appearance of a conflict.
Very good, very good. Okay, well, let's wrap up this topic. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I've got a couple of things. We got the calendar, but also I think we have this list of committee responsibilities with COG in particular. And there's a number of openings as carryover from the previous year. But there's some vacancies on MWAC, the Air Quality Committee. There's the Human Service Policy Committee. There's Climate. So alternates, I know, it's pretty hard to make it to all of these committee meetings, but some of them are just on a quarterly basis. And one that's not on here, the Region Forward Committee, it's such a great committee. It really is. It's sort of like the intersection between transportation, land use, and economic development. So there's great sort of cross-disciplinary presentations, and they only meet on a quarterly basis, and I think that's virtual as well. Amy, would you like to maybe serve on that?
Sure,
Okay.
that sounds great.
Yeah, I think
I
you'd
was
enjoy
also,
it.
I
Or is there
since, so
anything-
that I didn't take away anybody's project, I was thinking I would happily serve as the emergency preparedness
Okay.
contact as well.
Well, and I thought we actually, after we appointed Amy, that we did amend this to have, I thought we had said that Amy was alternate on some of these. So I think for some of the 2024 appointments, I think that there was actually a later version after we appointed Amy in January.
But I don't know that it ever went anywhere. I never got any emails.
But I think Region Forward's pretty interesting. I would recommend that. And we'll put you down for emergency preparedness as well.
That sounds lovely.
Anybody else want to commit to anything else?
And I think you went to one of the Air Quality Committee ones that I couldn't go to. So I think that Amy had been sort of the alternate for MWAC. Which, I didn't. I am happy to continue as on Transportation Planning Board and the Air Quality Committee.
I am interested in continuing to work on the Board of Directors and as the alternate on TPB. So we do the best we can. These meetings they're more virtual now. That used to be they were all in person, and that was really, really hard. So, but a lot of these are virtual now, or you can participate virtually.
Stay on the committees that I'm on as well.
Danielle, do you need any changes?
I don't need any changes. I'm fine staying where I am.
Is there, I guess, that only gives Amy one primary. Is there another one? There's,
Emergency preparedness and.
and the Region Forward, that's right. It's just not listed here. Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's not listed. It's a very interesting committee with great presentations. They just don't really vote on policy, but they have these discussions, and it's very informative. Very informative. Okay, let's see. Really? Okay. What was I saying? So, any other changes?
I don't think so, but if you put Amy on emergency preparedness, then if you share the information, if there's a Zoom meeting, if I'm able to pop in, I'd like to pop in.
So maybe Silky as sort of the alternate for emergency preparedness?
Yeah, given the fact that I'm on the Public Safety Advisory Committee and just for me to be able to listen in if I can.
You got that, Ms. Lasry-Millen? Okay. Question, please, sir.
Orleans resident. First, this item is not on the agenda for tonight. Second, this item traditionally has been done in a regular meeting. Council's reading from the list that it has. That list has not been shared. I would suggest that this is not something that council should be doing in a work session. It should be an agenda item in a regular meeting. Council can debate or discuss at that time their preferences for serving on a COG, representing Greenbelt on a COG activity, but it should not be done tonight in a work session.
I believe what we usually do is we put it on for approval at a regular meeting, and if somebody wants to change it, so we're discussing it now so that we don't have to take extra time discussing it but it will be formally approved at a regular meeting.
And I should have mentioned this as an information item because that's what this really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, we've got the calendar on here. We've got a lot of openings next year. And I would like to actually suggest, unless someone has a burning issue to put out there right now, let's think about it a little bit more. And also, because there are a lot of issues out there. So does anyone have a definite suggestion for a date for a work session or, in January?
Green Aces would like to discuss some environmental initiative, including the biodiesel that they sent a memo for some time ago, and some other solar panel proposals and things that memos will be coming soon. That could be late January or early February. It's not necessarily super urgent, but that is something that Green Aces has 3 or 4 different things they'd like to have a work session with us on. I would also like to propose that we currently have December 30th as TBD. I would like to propose we have that as a no meeting, because that is Monday before, like that's right in between Christmas and New Year's Eve there. And I think that's not a good time to have a meeting. I think that's hard on staff, and I think we're unlikely to have many residents really interested in attending a meeting on December 30th. And since we don't have anything listed there, I would propose that we put that on Mondays, to approve on Monday, that we change that to no meeting.
I agree.
I concur.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate Green Aces. I've asked a few times about 2030 proposals. I would really like, and talked about this at the beginning of the term, I'd really like to put together sort of like a aspirational 2030.
And that's exactly one of the things I want to talk
Right,
about,
so,
because, yeah.
So I made that referral a few times. and I'm
Right,
glad
well, and
that-
I'm saying that they're wanting to follow up with us on that in
Yeah, that's
a
great.
council
Yeah,
work
thank you,
session.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see, it's only 20 minutes after 9. Let's talk for another 30 or 40 minutes.
Well, you just go right ahead and do that.
If you
go
don't want to do
talk
that, we
yourself.
can just end the meeting now. Work session. Okay, this work session is adjourned. Thank you.
Just a reminder for folks, this isn't like an official information item.